when I was like trying to think, I wonder what those guys are going to pick. It didn't even cross my mind. I don't know why.
That's hilarious.
Because that's clearly the most obvious pick.
It was the North Star from a pretty early point.
We had to add more columns into the spreadsheet because we kept talking about it.
I think it's just because you guys both have kind of put it on the back burner for, even if you're playing it, you just kind of haven't talked about it as much. I was like, I guess they kind of, they loved it, but, I guess I think just like me, like I just like jumped to the next game just like that. Oh, I'm stuck. Next game. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with John Hines.
Hey there.
And Randall Nolery.
Hey, folks.
And we are back, as always, to talk about some video games, and we're back to wrap up yet another year of video games, I guess, or another year of Pursuing Pixels and talking video games on the podcast and whatnot and whatever. And yeah, we kind of, if you're unfamiliar with how we do our holiday episodes, I know it's pretty traditional in the sense that we sort of do like our games of the year, if you will.
Yeah.
But we do it in a slightly different fashion. We were just talking before we started up here. It's like it doesn't necessarily have to be games that came out this year in 2022. It just has to be something that we've discussed on the podcast in 2022. Now, for me, a few of my games, or at least a couple of them, did come out this year, but there's definitely some that I had on the table. I don't know about you guys if they're all on the newer side or whatever. I have a feeling there's going to be a little bit of crossover. When you mentioned that before we started recording, you guys were like, I was like, oh, I wonder what game they might have crossover on. And I was like, wait a minute. How can I not be thinking about this? But or how can I overlook that? But yeah, I think we always will
it's the most talked about game on the podcast. Maybe definitely this year.
Yeah, I think it's just because I was like, it's not a Kevin game, so get it out of my brain. Right. I know I'm not going to get around to it. But yeah, I'm gonna hold my list in my hand here because I got quite a few games that I had on the table. I'm gonna sort of do I'm not gonna do like a 3 honorable mentions and 3. I don't know. I have my top 3. I'm not gonna cheat as much as I did in the past, where I was just like, and all the games from Daniel Linson and Cultisti, who are my 2 of my favorite game developers, wrapped into one. And I'm not even gonna do because part of me was like, I gave it to Punk Cake last year. I looked up what we've done in the past, and I was like, I've been digging into those sock pop games hard, and I could just kind of give a blanket, sock pop. And even part of me was one of my most memorable experiences of this year. And I'll just kind of throw this out there because one of my games is kind of like a platformer adventure, which is probably my favorite genre of games. And part of me was I did those couple of streams. I think it was 3, maybe even 4 streams where I played Super Mario World and didn't do the Switch Palaces till the very end and did all 96 exits. And it was that was honestly one of my most memorable times with gaming throughout the year. But I was I did have some other memorable fresh experiences as well. Although that did again with that little tip from a SNES drunk video. With mentioning ways to mix up some of the classic games, saying, hey, why don't you try playing Super Mario World without the Switch Palaces? See if that makes things a little more difficult. And it definitely did. It mixed things up quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I guess I will kind of treat that as an honorable mention and just kind of scrape on the surface of a couple others before I make the actual pick for my platformer, because I really did love a couple of others. One that I played only a little bit of and honestly might have made the cut if I played more of it was Curse Crackers, For Whom the Bell Toils. We actually got a chance to do a interview stream with the developers on that one. We checked out the demo, played through the first 3 stages, so it was really cool to actually chat with them behind the scenes. It's got a really cool Game Boy Color style to the pixel art, just a really fast and fluid and just gorgeous platformer adventure. I love everything about it, but honestly, I just haven't played much beyond the demo. I think I just played maybe another couple stages after that. But honestly, it probably would have made the cut. And then the other game that I was it's on. I almost want to give it to this, but if I had to give it to only one platformer, I'm going to give it to the other game instead. But Flynn, Son of Crimson was another game that I was that game I just I played it on Game Pass and just plowed all the way through it. I didn't beat every secret exit, unlike Super Mario where I cleared all 96 exits or whatever. I was just kind of just kind of doing the main campaign. I did a few extra things here and there to level up my character, but it just was a really great. I think it was initially intended to be kind of more of a Metroidvania exploration game because that's how the demo was sort of laid out, which I played long ago. But they ended up going more of like an overworld map approach, and there were some like secret exits, kind of Super Mario World style, that would lead to like extra stages and stuff like that. But overall, I just really loved that structure of the game of like just kind of a little more linear with a, just a slight bit of open worldness or just, secrets and goodies around every corner. But the game I had to give it to, because the first game that came to mind, it was actually these two games, because I'm just going to go right into my next one after this. But my first pick of the three had to be Olija, which is just a game that I gushed about on the podcast like time and time again. At least, actually, it might have only been once or twice, but I played that one actually on 3 separate streams, and then I think I wrapped it up, like beat the game. But it was a game that just and actually played on Game Pass as well, but completely captured my attention. Like it was the only game I thought about from the time that I started playing it to the time I finished. Like I don't think I played any games in between. And it just has such a moody atmosphere. It's a game from published by Devolver Digital. I forget the development studio off the top of my head, but I remember thinking like, how is this game not getting more attention? Like it's got a really cool, like kind of almost like sketchy pixel art style. Like it almost looks like rough around the edges. Just like the way like the movement, all the animations are really fluid, and like the story's really moody and cryptic and a little bit silly at times. Like it doesn't take itself too seriously. Like I think I mentioned on the podcast, like one of the upgrade, like you get like hats that you can wear, and like most of them kind of fit the aesthetic of the game. But like for me, like the backwards green baseball hat like gave you like extra health or something like that. And I was like, none of the other perks really, I don't really need them. And I was like, I guess I'll just be look like Max Goof over here with my backwards hat. But yeah, I really love the mechanics in that game. Like the main kind of mechanic was like you had this spear that you could chuck around, and then like later in the game you would be able to like stick that spear into, well, not the ground wall, wherever. But you could like stick it into enemies, and then you could teleport to where the spear is. And then you got this heavy sword later in the game that they started throwing some puzzles into the mix. But just like Flynn, Son of Crimson, it kind of had like, it was a little more open worldy. Like there was a little more like every stage was almost like a little mini Metroidvania to a very small degree, but you were getting new abilities and new weapons and stuff. But you kind of would like go to different islands, and there'd be a few different like outposts or like kind of save points that you could travel to, and you kind of cleared each island at a time. And it just like, it was non-linear, but linear at the same time. And it was linear enough to keep me just chugging along and just like, okay, let me beat another stage. Let me get a little further in this game. And it was just a few hours, and I just loved every single second of that game. It's one of the more memorable games I've played in recent years, not just this year, but in any year. And it's one that I honestly intend to go back and play at some point. I played it, like I mentioned on I don't know if I mentioned that for this one, but I played this one on Game Pass as well. And it's one that I was like, if I see it like either a physical copy, definitely on Switch or something. I don't know if there is a physical version, but it's something I would definitely want to own at some point, because I'm like, it's not enough to just have played it and experienced it. But the other game, which was probably the first game that came to mind, and this is, I guess it is a platformer at heart, but it's kind of like in a genre of its own, so I don't have any other like honorable mentions to pair it with, but OlliOlli World had to get the mention for one of my favorite games this year, and also one of my favorite games just ever. I mean, I've put it in like, in the same sentence as like Downwell and some of my all-time favorite games. And it just has, I love precision platformers. I love the arcade games. I love a nice linear experience, and this game's kind of everything. Obviously, I love the Tony Hawk series, and this is kind of like, everything I said about it on the podcast in the past, it's just kind of like airtight controls. I guess it can be a little frustrating at times as you're kind of like learning the tracks, because it can be a little confusing. You don't know if you're going to like go up a vert ramp and go down a different part of the track, or like if you don't know what's coming, it can kind of catch you off guard here and there. But like it's such a reactive and fun and like vibrant game. The colors are so cool. The low poly like 3D art style, even though the gameplay is still in 2D, is amazing. I feel like you're ready to chime in there, John.
I was gonna say, like, this is really one of those games that I've had no business not picking up. Like everything that you've said, described about it, and like every like gameplay footage I've seen of it, like it all looks so good, and like just for no reason I've just not picked it up yet.
Same.
Yeah, I really need to, and I might force myself, like after we close down this recording, to just like pick it up, just so that I don't keep doing this.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think I haven't played any of the DLC stuff. I don't know if they've even added it yet, but I know they did have kind of like a roadmap, kind of plan for after the game comes out. We're gonna add, a couple new levels or whatever. But just all the extra stuff of like, I love the OlliOlli series as it is, especially OlliOlli 2, which I sunk a lot of time into. But like the way they added the sort of like procedurally generated, like after you clear a zone or a world in the game, like then you can go to like this extra section and play procedurally generated worlds on whatever difficulty you want, whatever length you want to set them to. And there's some online stuff where there's like you can like do these like, I don't know, you're like playing against like 10 other people for high scores, but it's just sort of random. Like I never found too much reason to go back for that, but just the gameplay in and of itself, the story and too as well, like the soundtrack. I think it's more of just kind of like a jukebox soundtrack of just cool songs, but it's still really cool songs. And like, just the sense of humor. Like I talked about this on the podcast, but just like, you're skating in Radlandia and you're trying to achieve Nirvana and just like all the little like quirky puns and like the way they lean into like the skate culture and attitude and stuff like that. Just so cool. I think my other game, but I guess, before I do that, just a couple quick other like runner-up honorable mentions, because the other game that I was really close to putting on this list was the Ninja Saviors, and I was thinking like maybe that's a little more recency bias, but it was, I'm not somebody who plays through a game from start to finish these days anymore. I kind of just scratch the surface, or I get to a point where I get stuck, or whatever the reason is, I just kind of like move on to the next thing and want to experience something new. But this game, for whatever reason, partially, I guess, because Randall is like heaped so much praise on it as well. Oh, yeah. And to be honest, like I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, I think this game probably would have made the cut. Like if you and I would have played this together co-op or something, like it'd be like that would cement it as like a memory and like a game that like, that's on the top 3 for sure. But because it was just kind of like a game that I chipped away at on my own, I'm very glad I played through it and I loved it and I want to play through it with the other characters and I really want to play it co-op. But I don't, I don't know. I just couldn't put it on the list. But I was also thinking about XO1 when we talked about that on the podcast. Just a really memorable experience, like a couple hours, just I don't know, one of a kind kind of game. I don't have much to say about it other than, there's just nothing really like it. And it's just very, very experiential. But, and I even thought about Into the Breach briefly, because I was like, man, I did play the shit out of that game when that update came out. But
I don't know how you can pare down, like you play like factors of 10 more games than like either Randall and I combined.
Yes.
And like, I don't understand how you could like, this seems ridiculous. Like how you've even narrowed it down to this.
As I narrow it down to this mess of like, and this game, and this game, and this game. But because I was also like, oh man, I want to mention something from like the Pursuing Pixels James Jam game. I was like, I got to pick something from that. But I was like, that's more of like that experience was up there. But like, not so much the game. But I guess I'm sort of leaning in that direction a little bit in a way. Or sort of, not really, I guess. But I did want to give the other game, which is kind of more for the experience than the game, but Below, which is a game that I played from Super Try with our pal Kevin Cole. And I was playing, it's like a roguelike dungeon crawler, and we did that like kind of interview stream with him. Where we played through the game and he kind of like, was kind of cryptically giving me hints along the way. We actually ended up playing through like 5 different Super Try games, but that was the game that we wrapped up. And like, I didn't even know, like I knew it was a new game that wasn't like technically out yet. And I think it might even still be only in release to like Super Try Patreon members, but he kind of saved it for last. And he was like, by the way, this is a world premiere of this game right now. And it was just like, I don't know. I tend to be someone when I go into a stream, and I've been doing this a little bit more lately where I might like try something fresh. Like I was wrapping up a stream and somebody's like, hey, why don't you check out this demo for this game Core Breaker? And I was like, oh, I've never played it before, but let me check it out. But I usually hate like fumbling through and figuring out the ropes, but I don't know. It was really fun to do with Below and with Kevin like giving me like these cryptic hints on the side, like, hey, maybe you don't want to do that. He wouldn't tell me why, but maybe you don't want to try that just yet. Or like, hey, maybe like that's what this means, like not what you think it means. Like it just like, I don't know,
it's a whole
so
experience.
Fun. Like, yeah, and honestly, like anytime we've sunk up with Kevin to do anything from Super Try and the whole team over there, it just seems like, I don't know, I just feel like so natural when I'm hanging out with him. So I just feel like, I don't know, I wanted to give a shout out to all of the, like doing some of those interview streams was some of the most fun I had throughout the year. Like I mentioned Curse Crackers earlier, but doing Spear DX. And there were definitely a few others that we did where I'd like kind of interviewed and played the game at the same time. There was, I don't know, we did City Limits, which was a game that was originally made for the Pursuing Pixels James Jam Game Gam. Space, my friend, went on to like turn it into a full Steam release, and I did like an interview session with them while we played it and checked it out. So I did want to kind of give a shout out. It wasn't so much as much Below is an amazing game, don't get me wrong, but it was more like it just felt really cool to sync up with Kevin Cole, and like I don't know, just if it almost in my brain kind of like made Pursuing Pixels like extra official, like, oh man, we're doing like these interviews with real indie game developers, and we've kind of been touching base with people like that since maybe not day one, but you know, since we got the ball rolling. But like, I don't know, that just was a really, really memorable stream. You know, we'd had a few beers or some wine, whatever we were drinking. And yeah, it was really fun to kind of wrap up. And I got pretty dang far in the run that I played. And actually, now that I'm talking about it, I'm like, that game's still sitting on my computer. I should fire it up. Part of my brain always thinks like when a game's like not technically out yet, I'm like, I don't want to play it till it's like the full release is out, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to kind of give some love to like the interview streams, I guess, in general, but yeah, and Super Try in general. But yeah, in particular, of the 5 games we played, Below really kind of stuck with me as like, oh, I want to dig deeper into that game and explore it some more. So, I mean, I could rattle off more honorable mentions, but I'm going to leave it there because I honestly, like you were saying, John, I could probably just keep going. Like I basically just stopped writing down games because I ran out of room. Like I wrote down your name next. So I'm like, okay, I got to leave room to write down what John talks about. So why don't I kick it? Not to mention Randall. So yeah, let me kick it over to you and talk about your honorable mentions and games this year.
Sure thing. Real quick, were those just your honorable mentions, or were those your honorable mentions and your games of the year?
That was everything wrapped into one in a really random order. So my 3 games were OlliOlli World, Olija, and Below. And then all of those other games
everything
were my
else
honorable
was
mentions.
an honorable mention. Okay.
So these timestamps are going to be fun.
It was so hard for me to keep track of like, have we segued from the honorable mentions into the actual game?
You know, I do that always when I'm like recording the intros for the save it for the cast and stuff like that. I'm like, man, I like half start a thought and then I start another one and then I'm like editing it later. I'm like, what the hell? I should almost like re-record this. Like, what was I even talking about? But
keep it authentic.
It's the holiday episode.
That's
folks.
right.
Exactly. And it's a bunch of cool games, whatever order they're in. A bunch of cool games.
Okay, well, I'm gonna attempt to have a little bit more structure. On
you are the spreadsheet guy. Which again, we always got to throw the thanks to John for keeping a spreadsheet up to date for us to be able to reference and just be like, oh, here's all the games we talked about this year.
Episode would not happen the same way without John's efforts.
Yeah. Well, it would just be all recency bias. Like the first game that came to, I was like, oh, Woten DX. That demo was awesome. That was one of my favorites. I'm like, I literally just played that last week.
Good, because those are the ones that I don't update as quickly. So I have the recency bias that covers all the stuff that I don't get around to covering.
Exactly.
But on my honorable mentions, this list, like I had a lot of games that I really liked this year, but like the honorable mentions were games that like I spent a lot of time with and like I really got deep into, but like maybe I didn't really necessarily think like, oh, this is a game that I really want to like. That's not even true. I don't even know. Who cares what the difference between my honorable mentions and the game of the year is? They're all good games. Like I love these, all of these, but like, in terms of honorable mentions, I've got, Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, which was somehow a third life of this game where I played it once as a single player poorly, then once as a single player halfway competently, and now I just play it multiplayer as God intended, with strangers around the globe, just helping with hunts. Like, and it's truly like this has been the year and like that I really got into Monster Hunter as like intended, maybe. Like I was really into Monster Hunter and it took me a while. Like it has a huge learning curve and like But I really do think that the amount of investment, if you are into playing the same game for hundreds of hours like I am, like it's a great way to spend your time. It's really satisfying to play and like really satisfying to learn new weapons, which is something that I was not doing for like the first 2/3 of like me playing this game. And then another game that's on my honorable mentions that also requires you to have a couple hundred hours of playtime into to fully appreciate is Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Fair.
Hey, I didn't expect to see that one here.
Oh, it's so good, but like it is such a bonkers series that like I don't know if I could really recommend someone to take the dive without putting in the like, but that's such a ridiculous ask to be like, hey, maybe you should play these like dozens of hours of previous games before going into this one, but
at least dozens. Yes.
Yeah. But it's a hell of a game. I really love Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and I've got so much more left to play of it. I know like there's new game plus stuff to get into that I haven't even touched, but it's a great one. And then
those games don't mess around.
No.
And then my final honorable mention this year, which again, I forgot was this year. Like there's been so much good stuff that's come out over forever.
Tons.
But Pokemon Legends Arceus.
Oh yeah.
Which was just a phenomenal like gem of a game that I was not expecting, wasn't looking forward to, wasn't paying attention to, and then like it came out and people were hyping it up and then I played it and it was everything I wanted a new Pokemon game to be, and it was really exciting and really fun. And the Pokemon Company has been forced to churn out a game a year or more a year. And I have not touched Scarlet Violet at all. And I don't know if I will, but I've got this game and it's keeping me happy. So
hell yeah.
Yeah, it looked cool. The one time that we did like the stream and then like I watched you play one time as well. Like I was like, this game, like it's almost sucking me in. And I actually almost, when I was at Best Buy grabbing some games for my brother, that Monster Hunter Rise was on sale for $17 and I almost bought it. And I was like, but it's just not a Kevin game. Don't get suckered in. And I would have had to get the DLC. But I know. I was like, it's so cheap. I was like, I'm half tempted. But yeah, I knew I made the right call, I think.
Yes, I think you did too.
For me personally, yeah. But yeah.
Moving on to my Game of the Year list, I think I'm going to start with one that I know we're going to revisit. So I'm not going to go, maybe as deep into it as I possibly could. But Elden Ring, what a fucking game. God damn it. Holy shit. Like, I remember when this game got announced and I was like, what's the big deal? Oh, yeah, we got George R.R. Martin's working on a Dark Souls game. Sure, I guess. Like, well, how is that going to be any better than the Dark Souls series? And then it was just the best game in that entire oeuvre
universe or whatever.
You can say that with more license than I can, but goddamn, it's masterpiece might be an applicable word there.
Like I have so much I haven't played that game in months and I still think about it all the time. Like every once in a while I'll like be like, oh, here's a new lore video that I've never like thought. It's like, oh, here's all of like the like people that all of the cultures in Elden Ring that use cuneiform and what that might mean, as opposed to all of these others which use like a runic language. And it's like this, like I can tell that this was absolute like Miyazaki is a little freak who loves making games that like have so many secrets in it, and George R.R. Martin was the perfect person to pair up with him to just like come up with entire like massive amounts of lore and background and not tell you a single thing of it, but like
they have like
everywhere,
or they have like tomes and tomes of like Bibles of like this is what this all means, but like all of it cryptically presented
there, and it's all in the environment, and every single thing is deliberately placed and thought of, and it's unbelievable to like, because you can play it and have a perfectly fine time and not engage with that at all.
100%.
It's unbelievable.
It is. You can enjoy it on multiple levels, on all of those on a very high level.
Do you think it's any less memorable if you're just kind of playing it more on that surface level? Do you think you need to kind of be a little more invested in it for it to like hit that sweet spot where you're like, oh, this is awesome? Or do you think even if you were just romping through and slashing away, like, you know, just ripping through it like an action game almost,
I don't
action
think it's
RPG
even
or
possible
whatever,
to like not be exposed to it. Like, I think that if you are speed running this game, not paying attention to anything, like, still, like, the atmosphere of every level, the atmosphere of every boss, like, just creates a whole different mood, and like everything about it just, I think, is so well designed that it's
you'd be
impossible
like
to ignore
it.
Like, yeah, even if you aren't engaging with the story or engaging with like, and like, you still kind of have to at some point, because there are choices that you make in the story, quote unquote story, that like vastly change the path that you take in it. So like, I think it's there, but it's there in a way that like most narrative games don't present it in the same way.
Yes.
So I think it's just an incredibly special game in a way that like the Dark Souls games are also that, but like the Dark Souls games, I never strayed from my loadout, and like I was always like the same build, did the same thing, and like it was fun. I loved doing it, and I did that for the majority of. Actually, no, that's not true. I did it for the beginning of Elden Ring, and then because of how Elden Ring was structured, I was just like, oh, I can play any weapon, and like that opened up the entire. I was like, oh yeah, there's a reason why like some people like do replay all of these Dark Souls games with completely different builds, because it's a game that's built around like so many. Okay,
it feels totally different the way you approach scenarios with different weapons, different loadouts. It really is.
It's so good. Elden Ring, what a fucking game.
It's incredible.
Yeah, like it feels like it just like seeps into you from every possible angle, like whether it's gameplay or story or environment, like whatever it is. If it's your thing, like while you're playing it, like it seems like it's just seeping in you from every angle.
Absolutely. But my next game on my Game of the Year list, none of these there's no order to these. They're all games that I loved and adored. The next one is Death's Door, which was a game that I didn't really know anything about when I like picked it up. We just had a huge, like the most like fervent recommendation from our friend Mikey, who's like, you have to play this game. And I was like, all right, he doesn't recommend games to me very often, I might as well like give it a shot. And yeah, it was phenomenal. Like a good, like isometric top down, like action RPG-ish, like kind of Dark Souls in like progression, and you know, losing if it was I'm mixing up like Ashen and all the other like Souls like, whereas like, okay, which one is salt, which one has souls, which one has like whatever
what's the commodity.
But like Death's Door is just incredible level design, and especially like early Dark Souls 1 level design, where you are just creating shortcuts which get you through, and like you are internalizing the like every location and where enemies are and what their patterns are, and specific to that location. And it was an absolute joy to play. I still need to fully beat it. I saw credits, but this game has a life well beyond that. That is
nice,
incredible, and I really loved my time with it, and heartily recommend people who are interested in that type of game not looking into anything else and giving it a shot, because I think it's worth it, and it's really worth experiencing it on your own.
And I'll go ahead and second that recommendation because, I didn't play enough of it because I started that in Tunic right around the same time. And Tunic, I talked about this on the podcast, but Tunic, for whatever reason, just the setting and the vibes and everything just caught my attention a little bit more. But they actually just put out that physical version of Death's Door on Switch. I just saw it when I was browsing at Best Buy, and it's got like a nice, like thick, like slipcase around it. And our buddy Mikey, who kept harping on us to play it, like he's got that vinyl set of the Death's Door, like soundtrack, like they really like it's such a gorgeous game. Like everything you said, it's just it's a really, really cool game. It's one that like I was like kind of mad. I was like, I got to pick one of the two of these because I'm gonna get confused and torn between the two if I keep trying to play both. So I was like, I'm just gonna lean into Tunic for now, but Death's Door is one I definitely want to go back to.
Yeah. And then my final game, I don't know if this will come to a surprise to anyone, but Rogue Legacy 2. Goddamn. What a goddamn bias game. Be damned.
Yes.
I loved Rogue Legacy so much when I first played it, and I did not pay attention to Rogue Legacy 2 at all during its development. It's been in early access for years, and like just got the full release on Switch out of nowhere, and I said, you know what? I really liked that game. Like the first installment of that. Let's see what this one is. And holy shit, it's the same game, just better in every fucking aspect.
Damn.
Literally every single way. It's just Rogue Legacy, but better. And that was one of my favorite games for years. So,
that game defined the PlayStation 3 for me. Besides the Uncharted's and the whatever, that was like the game for me on PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's like, I don't know. It feels endlessly replayable to me specifically. Like we've had discussions over like what people like in a roguelike, and just like the way that Rogue Legacy scratches that itch for me specifically is unlike any other game. Like it's just every run like is as fun as it needs to be for me. Like I don't know. It's hard to explain because like I can absolutely see like the criticism some people have of like it's really grindy, you have to do a lot of different runs, but like I love it. I love the fact that there's like 15 classes that all control entirely differently and have entirely different mechanics, and like in my mind, it's like, oh, I'm going to use whichever one I have the least experience in. So I'm constantly rotating. I'm playing a different class each time and like completely changing my play style, and then using different, like having different relics that I'm picking up. And the heirlooms that they added in this game have some of the best level design challenges of like having the environment tell you exactly what you need to do without explicitly telling you what you need to do. And then also, if you need to, it will tell you what you need to do. But like, if you like see the environment and be like, I bet I can do this, and then you try it and you can, and it's so good. It's so good. It's what a good year for games, guys.
Great year.
I love video games.
And I know I said this when you talked about Rogue Legacy 2 just a week or two or whenever it was ago, but like as somebody who had I liked the first game but didn't really get all that pulled into it. I was just like, this is cool, fun, but I played it kind of long after the fact, and like, okay, there's other roguelikes around. It didn't grab my attention, but like watching you play 2 was just like, man, I need this game. Like it just looks so good. Like I just can't second that enough just from watching you play it. I was like, God, I need that game.
Seems like such a Switch game too, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, like lay in bed with that hoary Split Pad Pro.
Oh yeah, just do a little
just
run.
Perfect.
Or 3 or 5.
And like you said, it's like the fact that like there's so many different classes, like forcing you to just like, okay, I got to lean into this play style on this run. I think that's what really makes a roguelike feel like fun to replay again and again. Fresh. When it's like making you play in a different way based on what you're getting.
Absolutely.
On any given run or whatever. But yeah, why don't we kick it over to Randall? I'm surprised how much AAA you had on the list there, John.
I'm surprised
almost
too,
primarily,
honestly. Like,
but
I also like there's a through line there with John in particular of like getting out of the comfort zone with like play style in certain games, you know. There was a lot of that.
Yeah, with Monster
there.
Hunter. Yeah.
It's been a good year for making John play a game differently.
I like it.
It's awesome.
Like it. But yeah, let's kick it over to Randall for that list.
Let's talk about some video games. So,
yes.
I'm a little bit slightly more structured as far as the order of this, the way I've been deliberating, but I have a list brain, so that's just kind of how I do it. But
yep.
So I have an honorable mention first before I get into my my three honorables and then the top
Love
three.
It. Love it.
The honorable mention is TMNT Shredder's Revenge.
Oh yes,
and it's that low only because I just didn't have the chance to play it more. But what I did played through with Kevin was a fucking awesome experience, and like probably the most notable beat 'em up that came out this year. So I have to give it some love. On this here podcast, on this episode. It's just like the production values on this game. It's just incredible. Like just such a love letter to those Turtles beat 'em up games. They just nailed it from the visuals to the interstitial, little cutscenes that introduce the levels to, adding the mechanics of like, it's not just, kick and punch and do your jump kick a million times. There's a whole bunch of depth to the combat, and they're adding, moves that you can do over time as you're gaining experience and beating more enemies. So, and the soundtrack's awesome, and lots of callbacks to the best elements of those games and the series in general. And they like, what could I ask for more than what they did? Right.
It's so true. It's one of those games that could have so easily been like, oh, I'm really excited for this. And then it comes out and you're like, it's okay.
Fine. Yeah.
It's glad they made it, but that's about it. Like, but it's like, oh no, this is everything I wanted it to be and then some. It really is awesome. And I've actually been fortunate enough to actually play it with a few other groups of people too. Nice. And just like, oh yeah, every time everyone's like, this game's awesome. So
yes,
looking forward to playing more of that down the line.
Yeah. It could have easily been a cynical cash-in thing, and it just was not that. And Tribute Games, of course, they just nailed it. So give them their kudos. Okay. So the three honorable mentions, in order, starting with the least honorable, is NBA 2K23.
The dishonorable NBA 2K franchise.
All those extra transactions.
Yes, that's why. That's why. And I don't know that I've ever put an NBA game on one of these end of year lists, even though I've always talked about these games. But man, this is technically the second release of what is now like the new generation of systems, right? And so they've polished this new basketball engine, and that's really why it's on this list, is because damn, it just feels so good to play this game. Man, they just nailed the basketball mechanics in this. It's so like, if there's a game where I'm like, God damn, I'm exhausted again. Like, I want to play a game for a second and just not think about stuff. Like, that's the game I turn on and my fingers just know what to do. And it just feels so good, and it's so fluid. And, when you just nail that 3-point shot and you get the little green over your head, and it just feels so good. It's just like they just nail what basketball feels like. And, when I tried my career for the first time and I'm just controlling my character, that added a different season to the whole experience that I hadn't tried before, where, now I'm just the guy, not even with the ball in my hand. Sometimes I'm setting a pick and then running down the lane, making the cuts, or, doing different things on defense without having to worry about controlling the whole team, and what that means when you're playing a team sport, and like how that can feel. Right. And it's just, they nailed it. The presentation's great on that too. Yeah. Love it.
Also, like, because I'm playing Elden Ring on PS4, this is like the actual current generation.
Yes.
Like, so I'm guessing this also like looks unbelievable.
It does. It looks outstanding. All the players look really as they should, and it seems like they're kind of pushing the limits, and like the sweat stuff they can do as the game goes on, and the up close, and you're like, oh damn, like if you just like look at a glance, you're like, oh gee, is game on? Oh no, okay, he's playing. Like it's getting there. It's getting there. Pretty impressive stuff.
And it's awesome that those games like keep sucking you back in. It's like, you'd think like eventually you'd be like, okay, I'm not interested in these anymore. But it's cool that they keep like it fresh enough to keep you interested at year after year.
I try to be true to myself, so why would I lie and not buy this? Why wouldn't I get the pre-order bonus? But that's enough of that. The next honorable mention is Retro Bowl, another sports game.
Yeah.
So another game I played a lot of.
Kind of forgot about that one.
Yeah, that was very early in the year. One that I like, oh yeah. Like, and I looked at the list. I'm like, yes, I talked about that game a lot.
Yeah.
I played a lot of seasons of that game. Took, the whatever Jacksonville team because that's who they put me with because they were crap. And then, I could turn over the roster and do my GM stuff with it. But then the actual game is just a better version of Tecmo Super Bowl as far as I'm concerned in the modern era. And it's just like, wow, they knew exactly what people liked about that, a la the Ninja Turtles beat 'em up. And they just brought it to present. And I'm like, oh, shoot. Like, this is it. That feels so good. And it's like a $5 or less game. And I just couldn't be happier with it for like a modern retro experience in a sports sense.
And another perfect one on Switch, it seems like. Just fire it up in bed, play a quick game.
Perfect.
Like I'm not in the mood to like learn a tutorial or something. Let me just, fire this up real quick.
New Star Games. And apparently there's they put out a soccer game and I've been just like so busy that I've been out of the mix, but apparently people like that one too. So I'm going to have to buy that.
I might be intrigued. Yeah. I like a good soccer game.
Me too.
Mario Strikers just missed the cut for me.
Me too. Honestly, you're joking, but it just barely missed it for me.
Okay, I did have fun playing recently with some friends, but I don't think it pushed it up that edge. Oh, okay. Yeah,
they just added a couple of characters. I haven't had a chance to play it, but
I gotta pop that cart back in.
You're not gonna do that. Don't lie to me, Kevin. So the next nominee is so the last one before the top list is Kirby in the Forgotten Land.
Yeah,
nice.
And
nice.
This was a Kirby game for me. Just like that Diablo style, like corridor Kirby game, and the co-op stuff in it too. And it's just like the presentation and the fixed perspective stuff and the little special levels that are harder than your average Kirby game if you want to play them and get more stuff. And I just really enjoyed it, and it was really fun for Fiona to watch me play that game too. She had a blast with it. It just, I like that game a lot.
The on rails sections of that game are like, it's so satisfying to have something where it's just like, okay, I got like the big pipe that mouthful mode, and like I'm just doing this like downhill jam, and I'm like nailing all of these jumps. Like Kirby at its best is when it like you like see what you need to do and you get it first try, and like it is so good at like making you feel like you are like nailing it, and like that game had a lot of really good moments like that.
That's a good point. Yeah, I felt that way about like some of the gliders section and things like that too. I would get into that zone like almost a little bit of a dumbed down Star Fox feel and some of that stuff. I was like, oh, that's great.
Because like at the end of most of those sections, they would have like that little thing you could go to like retry the section, but I would just be like, I don't need to retry that. I did good enough.
Did well.
But that's so true, because like I feel like when we talked about that game on the podcast, like especially when I was editing it back, I was like, man, we nitpicked this game to death, man. Like and I definitely
it was out of love. We just wanted the game to be so much, and it was good.
It isn't my favorite Kirby game, but it is a great like game. Like I can still like remember a lot of the scenes in it. Like it's definitely one that will stick with me. But it's just like I don't know, I don't know. I feel like we nitpicked it to death.
You guys did,
especially John and I,
put up. I
remember when you talked about it some more. I was like, I think we did. We were a little harsh on that one.
I loved Robobot so much, and like this
still haven't played that one.
Me neither.
This was a really good one, but I'm just like, but Robobot might be better.
Gosh, like, I need to play that game next year.
Just like how Return to Dreamland is just slightly better than Triple Deluxe. Like they're both great games, but
Re-releasing Return to Dreamland,
which I don't get why, but sure.
No, I don't either. But still all the
seems
same.
Like
that's
a
a great
random one.
game.
Give me
great.
Canvas. Give me either or not Canvas Curse. Although give me that one too.
Yes.
But I was thinking of Epic Yarn. But even Rainbow Curse. Give me any of those.
Yeah.
Give me any. I'll take any Kirby game though. I don't think I have
Kirby
the
game
Wii.
is going to be a good time.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a fact. That's a fact.
Yes. That floor is very high on that series.
Yeah.
All right, top 3.
Number
3, Bowser's Fury.
Yes.
Yeah. I
my
gushed
Christmas
about
list.
this. I gushed about this at least on a couple of episodes, and man, it just such a good, concise 3D Mario experience.
I wish it was available as a standalone game.
I know. Why wasn't it?
Yeah, give me a $20,
It looks
$30.
so good. Everything that you've described about it, every bit of
Sounds good.
Yeah, it does. They put the love into it, and it's even like just a little bit janky, but like in a good way as far as I'm concerned. It's just it evokes that kind of 3D Mario, but like more land appears as you do stuff, and it's got the whimsy, and it's got all the gameplay effects that it's drawing from Super Mario 3D World, where it's got a lot of like the catsuit stuff, which is super fun, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. And again, another game that Fiona just absolutely adored watching, and so it was a great, just ripped through this game in 10-ish hours at most, but did every single thing in that game, which is ultimately why it made number 3, is because I completed that game.
Yeah, that honestly sounds so nice to have. Like, I mean, I love ripping through a big Mario game like Odyssey or whatever, like the bigger ones that have 120 stars, but it sounds kind of nice to just like, let me give like a third of a Mario game and just kind of rip through that like size game or whatever.
It's real good. And it's honestly probably why it's this high, is because it was so concise, and it was that smaller scale. Just release it digitally. Why is Nintendo so arbitrary? I don't know.
I know. One day.
Yeah, right.
We've been beaten down by Nintendo over the years.
One day when they release it with Super Mario 35 on a physical cartridge.
Except that they're only releasing 35 copies of it. That's
God, no.
Oh, God.
Why Nintendo? Okay.
Unreal.
That's enough Nintendo games. We're not talking about any more Nintendo games, because we're going to talk about Panzer Dragoon Saga.
Yes,
next.
we are.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Resolution making the top 3.
Team Andromeda. Yeah. A resolution game. A game that I've wanted to play forever. A game that I've owned forever. And from the early, as Kevin mentioned last time, from the very early days of Tina and I's relationship, some, 16 years ago, I got
sounds about right.
Gifted this game. And like it was just like, ooh, 4-disc RPG. I don't know. I'm gonna have the time to play that, and and one of the busiest years of my life, I've made time to play this game, and it's just like, this is a game that sucks me in, and I'll play this game in like 2-3 hour chunks, and I just get into this this zone with Panzer Dragoon Saga, where it's just like, I don't know, like the presentation and just the battle system, as I talked about before, is just so engaging. Like, I can't tell you, I could probably count on one hand the number of games where I'm like, oh man, like I love it when I get sucked into a random battle that I couldn't see. This is one of those games. I can't see the enemies, and I'm like, oh, random battle. Oh, cool. Yes, that's the part of the game that I like the most. And, that's not to say this is a perfect game by any stretch, but it is exactly what it is. And Sega, unlike Nintendo, is willing to take a lot of chances, and is a very unique, experimental, and I can't say there's anything quite like this game. And it's not just because it's $1,000. It's because it is what it is. It's like, they took a rail shooter game series and turned it into a JRPG with fully voiced cutscenes and this whole atmosphere and storyline. And I'm finally on disc 4. I still haven't beaten this game, but it's this high, and I'm gonna talk about it again because I'm going to beat this game.
Good, because every time that you've talked about this game, I'm like, this game sounds sick as hell.
Yes.
How have I not heard everyone talk about it who cares about JRPGs? This seems like the game that would, I don't know, revolutionize an entire generation of people who played it to create like a whole new series.
Well, that's because it released on a failed platform and with less than 10,000 copies.
And I kind of wrote it off just as like, oh, it's a game that's sought after because it's like this, rare relic of a video game that like, it's just expensive and that's the only reason people care about it. But it's like, oh, it's awesome to hear that it's like the game itself is cool too.
I just love it. I was playing it last night just because I wanted to be fresh on, talking about it again here. And I played it for like 3 hours. I was just like, God, this game's so good. I'm going to play it more.
That's
Big
awesome
fan.
to hear because especially when you got to wrestle some of like the retro jank and stuff like that, like playing some of those older games, like the fact that you're still that sucked into it, that's awesome.
And there's plenty of retro jank. Like I said before, the on-foot sections, not good. Really. Like have their charm. Really cool. It's it's charming in its janky way, basically, right?
Yeah.
But it's like so vibey, so good, so like purposeful.
Yeah.
You'll hear me talk about it more.
Good. Can't wait. Wait.
Then obviously the number one is Elden Ring. Elden Ring is incredible.
What the hell, man?
What else is there to say? From Software just dropped at the beginning of this year and just like, here you go, here's the game of the year.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a lot of other games that come out. This is the game of the year.
God,
I don't even know what else to say. Like, and I'm someone that doesn't play a lot of these Dark Souls.
Yeah,
games.
it's like it is more of like neither. Honestly, it doesn't strike me immediately as a game that either of you would gravitate towards. But if I had to pick, I'd probably pick John over Randall being like the one to get sucked into it.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna kill a puppet to get an arrow drop instead of actually buying arrows at the shop. Of course, I'm gonna spend a full hour just doing that.
Might be
I have arrow. Mental illness. I am aware.
It's like John said, it's just so deliberately designed, but it's massive. It doesn't make any sense.
Biggest fuck.
I still have I've only just got to the what is it called, the snowy land with the giants. What's that place called?
I'm still there.
Okay,
I haven't gotten past that.
No,
chugging along at the same pace.
Yeah. No, and it's fine because there's so much to see. There's so much to go back and see in the other places you were at before.
Exactly. I keep going back and finding new caves or new castles or new quest lines.
Yes.
And it's like, I was like, it's so fun to just go back, especially like two places specifically that killed you, like, and you were terrified and gingerly moving through them, and then like they still will kill you if you are being a little, cheeky with it, but you
reckless,
being able to go back and be like, I never even saw this room. I never even saw this entire section.
100%.
Like, how is this here? Like,
yes. And you'll go back and you'll see that stuff and you'll be like, oh my God, this is all here too.
Yeah.
And like, I was thinking about this too, that like, this is Elden Ring in particular is a game where like, I put that game down and like, shit, I died again, in that cave or on that boss or whatever. And I'm back at the bonfire. And now I'm like too tired to like try again because there's like 80,000 runes sitting halfway through this fucker. And like, I know I can do it, but I can't do it right now.
Yep.
But I'm not like complaining about that. I'm like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to go back and I'm going to do this again. Like, how many games
it's like a
can you think
legit
of?
Adventure.
Yeah. Like, but how many games can you think of where like you're getting beat on? Like it's so oppressive, but
and
you
you're
want
looking
more
forward to the opportunity.
Yes. Yes. Because it can be empowering too, because it's so oppressive and so difficult. It's and you can, like John said, you can approach it from so many different ways, and even within these categories of weapons or the type of build that you make, there's variance. A lot of it, it's just wild. It's the scope of it is just crazy. I can't believe it.
Yeah, it's a game that like. I do like watching people play games, so it's one that I'd like to like see you guys play. I don't think it would ever be something that would scratch the itch for me, even though I bet I could get sucked into it under the right circumstances. But the way you guys talk about it, I'm like, I want to see more of it other than just like the clips I've seen, you know?
I know. I know I'm super stubborn, but I'm thinking about it now, and I really just need to like reclass and like respec for the boss that I'm stuck on. There's no point in why I'm not doing it. It's a dumb thing that I haven't done it. Like I need to just get past the next boss and move to the next area.
Hey, like you said, now you know there's a way that you can respec easier than you did before, which I very much appreciate that tip.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
In particular, considering how long it takes otherwise. Very soon I'll get to that bird farm section. I'm really hoping. I think I'm almost there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to see who gets across the finish line first. Although it sounds like one of those games that like there probably isn't even a real finish line. You know what I mean? There's probably more things to do after
an expansion.
Oh my god, I wouldn't be surprised.
They've done it for every Dark Souls game, so I wouldn't be
That's
surprised.
true. Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah, and I would fucking do it in a heartbeat.
Yes, me too. Oh yeah, that's insta-buy.
breathe even more life into that game that doesn't need any more than it already has.
That we haven't still seen like half of in the fucking first place.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's awesome.
That's enough. That's enough. All right. So resolution time.
Let's roll into it. What are we going to play this year? And hopefully, well, who knows? I'm going to try my best to not wait till like the week before the
Kevin,
next
you're
year
just lying and lying.
rolls over.
Yeah, Kevin, do you want me to be irritating in every week that we record? Just be like, hey, Kevin.
I have a game picked that I intend to play early on. Intentions are, they are what they are.
Yeah, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, Kev.
Exactly.
The best of intentions.
Exactly. But at least I wasn't the only one this year. Although Randall got the Panzer Dragoon Saga in earlier on.
Yes, it was like a sandwich.
Randall under the bus.
Yeah, exactly.
I did it at the beginning of the year and I did it at the end of the year. That's kind of what happened.
Yeah.
Okay. Resolution. All right. So my resolution in general, I'm going to kind of cheat, but not really, because I'm going to pick one in particular. So my resolution is to actually play some of these physical homebrew games that I've purchased over the years. Finally, everything's set up. There's no excuse. I'm literally playing Panzer Dragoon Saga on Saturn hardware through a SCART fucking multi-adapter through a thing that upscales it to my TV. Like, it's all set up. I bought all the stupid shit. I've figured it all out. I need to play these games. So I'm going to play the homebrew games. I've got way too many of them. It's time to play them. In particular, if I have to call one out that I'm going to play next year, 2023, it's Dungeons and Doomknights, which is an NES homebrew. That's adventure action. They kind of pitched it on Kickstarter, which is where I backed it and did the special edition as like Zelda meets Castlevania sort of gameplay thing going on there. Then they spent a lot of time and love on it, and really cool graphics for NES and stuff. So I've been excited to play it. So that's where I'm planting my flag. It's going to happen.
Nice. Well, keep me posted if you're whatever homebrew stuff you are playing. If it's stuff like I was just playing some homebrew stuff myself recently, some of like the Matt Hewson or Hugson, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but like Witch and Whiz and some of From Below, some of their other games. I know you've talked about From Below on the podcast.
Great game.
Witch and Whiz was kicking my ass, man. Those puzzles are so hard, but really cool. Like it was like I was just playing on an emulator, but it was like, oh man, it's really cool to like play modern retro games, true retro games, I guess.
It's very cool. I actually pre-ordered Witch and Whiz through limited run, but they don't ship you stuff until all games in that order are available to ship at the same time. So I'm waiting, but that should happen anytime.
Interesting.
I have that game too in the next couple of months, I think.
They've been teasing too that they're working on like a Super Nintendo version of that game. I don't know. They've been like teasing it here and there. They're working on another new game. Like, I don't know. I'm a big fan of their stuff.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. All right. I'm excited to hear about some homebrew stuff next year.
Yeah.
What about you, John?
So I mentioned this before we were recording, how like, I've really liked how we've been doing our resolution games, and like, but I've also kind of like built my own expectations. So there's like, oh, I can't have that be a resolution game. I can't waste a resolution on that. Whereas like, I know I'm going to play Nier Automata next year. I know I'm going to eventually play No More Heroes 3 at some point. Like
very John games,
right?
Yeah, these are games that I own and like will get around to at some point. But like, a game that like I have again like OlliOlli world where I'm like, oh yeah, I have no business like not playing this game, and I need to just force myself to play this game that I know I'm going to enjoy, or at least like will enjoy and really feel strongly about certain parts of it. And that is the second game from Worst Girl Games, which is Heaven Will Be Mine, which is a kind of visual novel mech game.
Ooh,
okay.
And it
also
is their
sounds
game
very John.
After We Know the Devil, which is also a visual novel-esque occult teen girl
nice.
Satan game. And like they're games that like I've really enjoyed the like other works that the creators have done, and I own them. I have merch from like both releases. Like there is literally no reason why I have not played these games that I know I will enjoy. And so this year I will be playing, or in 2023, I will play Heaven Will Be Mine, and I will be very excited to talk about mechs and and the trauma that the pilots have to endure to pilot these weapons of destruction.
PC? Are we talking PC here?
Oh, I got this on Steam, baby. I think they are on Switch.
Oh, cool.
Maybe We Know the Devil is on Switch, I think.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that.
Nice.
I love John's like, check out all these AAA video games that I love this year. And next year I'm going to be talking about a visual novel mech anime game.
Yeah, that's right, baby.
That rules.
I love it.
That's amazing.
Well, I guess I'll wrap it up with my resolution for next year. Like I was saying, I'm hopefully not going to wait until the last freaking second on this one. And this is kind of like John. This is a game not anywhere for near as long, but this is a game that's been like sitting in like the back corner of my mind. Like every time I fire up my Switch, I'm like, why am I not playing this game? And especially because I love the first game in the series so much. And that's Anodyne 2 Return to Dust.
Oh, yes.
I
always
this up
love
for just
when
like
one of you guys pick a game that I want to play, because I'm like, that's an excuse for me
I was
to play
for a second when you started like warming up, I was like, is John gonna pick Anodyne 2? I know we both own this game. But yeah, it's a game that I have on my Switch, and I think I've even played like just the very like first opening like seconds of it. It even has like this really like, because I remember there's like an opening like kind of just like it has nothing to do with like the actual story of the game. It's just like a message from the developers. It's like, hey, this is what the game kind of is trying to do here. Like, enjoy and don't think about it too much. I can't remember what it says, but it's just something like really cool where I was like, man, what a way to greet the player. Like what a friendly, like welcoming way to be like introduced to a new game or whatever. But I ended up I did like a Patreon poll a long time ago, and Anodyne 2 won the poll, or it actually tied with Death's Door, I think. So I ended up I played Death's Door, and then I was like, I'm gonna do both games. But then the developer had just of Anodyne had just released a new game called Sephony, and I was like, you know what, I'll actually stream that instead. And then I was playing it on my laptop. I was having technical issues, so I only played a little bit of it, and it wasn't quite scratching the itch like Anodyne did. But I don't know, Anodyne, the first one, has just been a game that's stuck with me ever since I played it. Like I'm just like, man, it's one of my favorite games. It's just like a top-down, like really retro, almost like janky 8-bit style game. And then Anodyne 2 has some of that in it as well, but it's also like a really janky like PS1 3D game as well. And then you like go into these different worlds that switch to that retro 2D style. Like I don't know. I really love the gameplay of, I don't know, just like the mysterious, I don't know, everything about Anodyne I loved, and I really am looking forward to experiencing both layers of that, I don't know, world in Anodyne 2, the 3D and the 2D. But yeah, that's a game that I've been sitting on my like to play list for what feels like years now. So needs to be done.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I think we can probably wrap it up here for another long-winded holiday episode, per usual.
Video games are good.
They're really good.
It's one of the few things that's kept me going in 2022, and I feel like we probably said the same thing last year. You know, it's been a rough few years in games have been a nice distraction. So
no doubt.
Yeah, looking forward to digging into some of these. Maybe even digging into. I'm probably never going to pick up my own personal copy of Panzer Dragoon Saga, but you never know. Maybe I'll be rich one day. Glad you got in there early on that one before
Big
it went
time early,
skyrocketed. Yeah. But yeah, looking forward to hearing more thoughts when you finish that one up. And yeah, I guess until next year or whatever you want to call it, we will catch you then. We're on the internet, pursuingpixels.com. Thanks for listening as always. And yeah, until next week and next year, we'll catch you then and take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.